From 1984, it's Streets of Fire with Michael Pare and Diane Lane. Now this film I never saw in theaters when it came out in the 80s. I also never rented it when I went to the video store, even though I remember seeing the box on the shelf so many times. And I think in both cases I never saw it because I had a misconception as to what the film was actually about. Having seen it recommended recently, I watched it and I'm very disappointed that I didn't see it in theaters now because I really enjoyed it. It's very offbeat, very different, certainly different than what I thought it was in an enjoyable way. Having seen it, I wanted you to be able to watch it, but let me say this, it's rated PG, but it came out in 1984, the same year that Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom came out. And of course, that film fostered the creation of the PG-13 rating. And that's the rating I think this film would have been given had it come out after the Temple of Doom. So there were certainly parts that I couldn't let you watch in the film, but having watched it beforehand, I knew where they were, I censored them, and it didn't create a problem with you being able to follow the plot at all, because in most cases, the things I had to censor out weren't things you needed to know to understand the storyline. And if they were, I could not let you watch it and just explain really quickly what happened in that segment without, exposing you to something I didn't think you should see.
Right. And I actually really liked this movie. I think that for me it was a little bit confusing at times because I got confused as who was going where and what they were going to do in their plan. But other than that, I thought that this was really good. And I think my favorite character would be Ellen.
Ellen Aim, played by Diane Lane, and she's a rock star. And this film starts out very quickly. I mean, we jump right into the plot. She's giving a concert, and let me say this. This film is difficult to pigeonhole, to categorize. At the beginning of the movie, it comes up on the screen and it says, a rock fable from another time in another place. And I can't do better than that to describe the setting and the style of the film. I can't think of a better terminology because you can't pigeonhole it anywhere else. It certainly has an interesting look, and it's very difficult to say whether it would be the past, the present, or the future. It's certainly not the present, right? But the past or the future. And as to where it is, we have no idea.
No,
I'm not even sure it's on.
But it did look very cool.
It was a very cool design. I mean, the production design is really neat. I don't even know if it's on Earth necessarily. All the references that they give as to locations are generic. So you really don't know where they are. You can't pinpoint a city. They certainly have cars and they have elevated trains, and that's what they were driving under. You asked me at one point what the posts were, and I said they're driving under another, and they were driving under the L train tracks. The cars are 50s era cars, and some of the hairstyles and the clothes are from the 50s era, but it's definitely not back in the 50s necessarily because it has a futuristic feel to it as well.
Yes.
Right? So Ellen is giving this concert and she's kidnapped by Willem Dafoe's character, Raven. And in the audience that night is Deborah Van Valkenburg's character, Riva. And she's a great actor. I thought she should have been in far more things than she was, but I loved her in this. And she sees the kidnapping and she contacts her brother, Tom Cody, played by Michael Pare. And Tom and Ellen had once been an item. So she sends to him and brings him, back home, basically, and tells him that she wants him to go out and rescue Ellen. And while it looks like it's for her, it's really for him because she knows how much he cared about Ellen at the time. And so it's a very straightforward kind of mission for him. He's going to go and he's going to rescue her from this motorcycle gang. But it's the style. It's a very stylistic film.
Yes.
And he picks up people along the way. Amy Madigan plays McCoy, who's a former soldier, and he's a former soldier. So they sort of have a link there. And she's going to go and help him. And then Rick Moranis is playing Billy Fish. And he's Diane Lane's concert promoter, but also her new boyfriend. And he's kind of a jerk the whole way through. But he has there's a nice change in there at some point for him. So it's got a lot of traditional cliches for a movie of this type.
Yes.
But at the same time, it's so stylistic, and their parts are so interesting to me.
Yes, and I really liked all of the characters. There was a showdown at the end with Tom Cody and was it Raven?
Yes.
And I thought it was kind of weird but cool in a sense. Raven kind of looked like a devilish vampire.
Yeah, his complexion is very pale. And then he gets, they're fighting, so there's some blood on his face. And the juxtaposition of the two images,
and
the colors.
By the end, he looks like a zombie.
Yes. Yep. And even in that scene, the way it's filmed and the way it's very interesting. It's so stylistic, and the costumes, everything was great. And of course, it is a rock fable. So there's a lot of great music from the 80s in here. Diane Lane's character sings a couple of songs. Now, I think she was lip syncing. I don't think she was actually singing. Then there's another band that they meet along the way during the rescue, the Sorels. And they're great. They sing a great song at the end, which you'll be familiar with. I don't want to give it away. But you've heard it on the radio, sung by a different artist. But I think they're actually singing it here. So the music, the soundtrack is a lot of fun. Of course, I love 80s music, so it was fun for me. But I think what was so cool to me is the style of it and how you really can't pinpoint what it is. Is it science fiction? Is it fantasy? Is it futuristic? Is it a throwback?
Right.
Where does it fall?
I thought it was really cool because of all of that stuff. There were like pinches, like the cars. It kind of reminded me of the cars from the 50s, let's say. And there were parts of it that reminded me of things from here, but then it was kind of it was very imaginative because there were other things that you didn't really know about.
Exactly. If I had to guess, I would say it was like a parallel universe. It was like Earth in a parallel universe where the 50s was a little more advanced than it is now, but the styles were this, or it was in our history anyway. But the styles were similar. I don't know. Again, it's very difficult to categorize the film in any particular genre because it overlaps in so many ways. I mean, it's even kind of a musical, but it's not a musical. It's I don't know.
Hard to explain.
It is. It might not be your cup of tea, and I was sure it wouldn't be mine. And even when it starts out, I mean, when I first had you start watching it, I hadn't seen it in a few weeks. I mean, I remembered what I had to censor. And as we started watching it at the very beginning, I'm like, ooh, I thought this was better than this. I mean, at first I was a little cringy, and then it quickly picked up pace, got its feet under it, and I'm like, oh yeah, that's right, that's why I liked it. So as it gains momentum as it goes, especially when Michael Pare's character, another actor who I think should have been more famous than he is, when his character comes into the storyline, and he starts bringing in, the other side characters with him, and we get on that rescue mission to save Ellen. It really picks up momentum, and it builds, and for me, it drew me in anyway. I really liked it because it was different. It was offbeat.
Yes, I really liked this, and I liked how there was Tom Cody, and then on the way he would bring in different characters, and more characters would come. And then eventually everybody's good.
Right. I mean, it really starts out as a one-man rescue operation, and it turns into a lot more people, but all those people play an important part in the storyline. They're not like, just there for fluff. And at the end, you get closure with all the different characters.
Yes.
And it doesn't end the way you might think it would either. No. I mean, did you think it was going to end the way it ended?
No, not really.
Okay. All right. Anything else?
No, I don't think so.
For you?
I think you should see it. I think that this one isn't one of my favorites, but I did like it.
I think it's a see it, definitely. I think, again, it's offbeat, it's stylistic, it's very different, and I think I'm looking for something different every now and then, that you just can't categorize, and I think that's what's so cool about this picture. But I like the characters, too, and I thought, I like a lot of the actors in here who should have been maybe more famous than they ever were. All right.